All right. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'm going to read a statement that we issued just a little while ago. The Secretary General welcomes the continued implementation of the ceasefire in Gaza, based on the proposal by U.S. President Donald J. Trump, including the release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian detainees. He commends the governments of Qatar, Egypt, the United States, and Türkiye for their persistent mediation efforts and acknowledges the indispensable role of the International Committee of the Red Cross in ensuring that all releases take place safely and humanely. With the ceasefire in effect, the people of Gaza and Israel are beginning to glimpse the fragile hope of calm after months of devastation. The United Nations and its partners are rapidly scaling up operations across Gaza. UN agencies are reaching communities in areas that were cut off for months, delivering life-saving assistance. These efforts mark an essential first step in stabilizing conditions and restoring basic human dignity, but the needs remain vast, and sustained access and funding are critical. The Secretary General calls on all parties to consolidate the ceasefire and transform it into lasting peace. He appeals to regional and international actors to seize this moment of respite, to restart a credible political process that can deliver the outcome of two independent, sovereign, democratic states, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security within their secure and recognized borders on the basis of pre-1967 lines, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states, in line with international law, UN resolutions, and other relevant agreements. Mr. Guterres made a phone call this morning from Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, where he's attending the summit underway today, in which he told Israeli President Isaac Herzog that he welcomed the release of the remaining live Israeli hostages from Gaza. The Secretary General recalled the many meetings he had with hostage families and survivors, during which he heard of their unbearable pain. Regarding the humanitarian situation, the Emergency Relief Coordinator, Tom Fletcher, today allocated an additional $11 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund to support the immediate scale-up of humanitarian operations in Gaza ahead of winter. This follows last week's $9 million allocation to ensure sufficient fuel supplies to keep life-saving services running across the Strip, bringing total recent SURF funding for Gaza to $20 million. Mr. Fletcher warned that without fresh contributions to SURF, critical aid cannot keep flowing to people who rely on it. Speaking from Sharm el-Sheikh ahead of the summit in Egypt today, Mr. Fletcher stressed that this is a moment of precarious hope for so many Israelis and Palestinians, and he added that the humanitarian scale-up planned by the UN and our partners in Gaza is underway. Meanwhile, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says that under the humanitarian plan for the initial 60 days of the ceasefire, the UN and our partners will deliver life-saving assistance and services to people across the Strip, wherever they need our support, including food, water, health services, shelter supplies, hygiene items, protection support, and other critical help. Our colleagues from the UN 2720 mechanism report that they have secured Israeli approval for more aid, bringing our cleared pipeline to 190,000 metric tons as of yesterday. These supplies are across the region in Jordan, Egypt, Israel, Cyprus, and the West Bank, and are ready to move. Some is already on the way. Yesterday, OCHA reported that for the first time since March, cooking gas entered the Strip. More tents for displaced families, frozen meat, fresh fruit, flour, and medicines also crossed into Gaza throughout the day. Inside Gaza, humanitarians are now able to move more easily in many areas, and so our teams are reaching people in places that have been cut off for up to several months. With the easing of movement and access restrictions in multiple places, we were able to pre-position medical and emergency supplies where they are needed most and assess key roads for explosive hazards. Our partners are working to increase production of meals in community kitchens in the north, as thousands of people have already returned to that part of Gaza. The UN and our partners are helping kitchens and bakeries serve hundreds of thousands of meals and bread bundles every day, and we are trucking drinking water to places where people are staying. From Friday until yesterday, our colleagues monitoring displacement recorded nearly 310,000 movements of people from southern to northern Gaza, and about 23,000 movements in other directions. This is just the beginning. As part of our plan for the first 60 days of the ceasefire, the UN and our partners will expand the scale and scope of our operations to deliver life-saving aid and services to virtually everyone across Gaza. And just to flag a statement that was issued this weekend by the peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon, on Saturday, an Israeli drone dropped a grenade that exploded near a UNIFIL position in Kfar Kela. One peacekeeper was lightly injured and received medical assistance. UNIFIL is investigating the circumstances of the incident. UNIFIL says that this is the second IDF grenade attack on peacekeepers this month. It represents another serious violation of Resolution 1701 and concerning disregard for the safety of peacekeepers implementing their mandate from the Security Council. We again call on the IDF to cease attacks on or near peacekeepers who are working to rebuild the stability that both Israel and Lebanon have committed to restore. The Secretary General is closely following developments in the last 48 hours in Madagascar. The Secretary General joins the call of the chairperson of the African Union Commission to all Malagasy stakeholders to prioritize peaceful and consensual solutions to the current situation. This morning, the Security Council held a briefing on the Great Lakes region. Huang Sha, the special envoy of the Secretary General for the Great Lakes region, noted that since his last briefing in April, there have been significant diplomatic developments, and there's now real hope for a ceasefire, which would pave the way for a lasting and definitive resolution in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. While all African and international peace efforts are commendable and promising, Mr. Shah noted that they have not yet delivered on their promises. He added that the humanitarian situation remains catastrophic, humanitarian access remains problematic, and serious human rights violations continue to be reported. Mr. Shah called on those most directly concerned to resume direct and frank dialogue and to take all necessary steps to end this war once and for all. Turning to the horrendous situation in Sudan and mainly in North Darfur State's capital, El Fasher, we echo the statement issued by the humanitarian and resident coordinator in Sudan, Denise Brown, in which she condemned in the strongest possible terms the repeated and deliberate targeting of civilians in the besieged city of El Fasher. On Friday and Saturday, at least 57 civilians were killed by drone attacks, reportedly carried out by the Rapid Support Forces. UNICEF says that at least 17 children were reportedly killed during the weekend, including an infant who was just 7 days old. The attack struck a location where displaced people were sheltering, in the Daraja Wala neighborhood of El Fasher. This incident follows a series of reported attacks by the RSF last week that left scores of civilians killed and injured. This included an attack on the Saudi hospital, the last functioning major medical facility in the city. In recent days, we have also seen reports from local community leaders of further civilian casualties in an alleged drone strike on Al Koma, east of El Fasher, in an area held by the RSF. Back in June, 5 humanitarian workers were killed in the same area in an attack on an aid convoy en route towards El Fasher. Ms. Brown reiterated her appeal for an immediate end to attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure, stressing that hospitals, shelters, and places of refuge must never be targeted. She called for thorough, impartial investigations and accountability for those responsible for the attacks in El Fasher. We and our humanitarian partners remain committed to supporting the people of El Fasher and all those affected by the conflict across Sudan, but the humanitarian community requires safe and unhindered access. Civilians must be protected, and above all, the people of Sudan need the violence to stop. Moving to South Sudan, our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs report that flooding continues across the country due to heavy rains and rising water levels along the Nile River. When we last spoke to you from here on the floods in South Sudan 3 weeks ago, some 380,000 people had been impacted. As of yesterday, our humanitarian partners tell us that number has more than doubled, with nearly 890,000 people now affected. The vast majority of these people are in the states of Jonglei and Unity. Nearly a third of the people affected have been displaced and are seeking shelter on higher ground. The floods have caused extensive damage to homes, crops, schools, health facilities, road and other critical infrastructure, further complicating humanitarian access. Some flooded areas in the south of the country are now accessible only by canoe. Despite these challenges, we and our humanitarian partners continue to deliver life-saving assistance, including shelter, food and nutrition support, cash assistance, health and water, and sanitation services. They have also distributed sandbags and other flood control materials. Above average rainfall is expected across most of South Sudan, heightening flood risks. As of October 13th, the 2025 Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan, which seeks $1.7 billion to assist 5.4 million people, is only 30% funded at $504 million. This is down from 43% at the same time last year. This underfunding hampers the ability to scale up emergency interventions, pre-position supplies, and sustain operations. The Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Joyce Msuya, is in the Central African Republic this week. Today, in the capital, Bangui, she met with Prime Minister Felix Molua to discuss the government's work to bridge humanitarian development and peace efforts. Ms. Msuya also met with Josiane Lina Bemakasui, the Minister for Humanitarian Action, to explore ways to deepen collaboration on humanitarian work, durable solutions, and access. Later this week, she will also meet with communities and our partners working on humanitarian issues. The humanitarian crisis in the Central African Republic remains dire, with 2 out of every 5 people in the country in need of humanitarian assistance, while 1 in 5 are displaced, either within the country or across borders. The World Food Programme today warned that women, children, and displaced families are hardest hit by Haiti's prolonged crisis, which is driving rising hunger and malnutrition. The alert follows the release of the latest Integrated Food Security Phase Classification analysis. WFP notes that a record of 5.7 million people, equivalent to 51% of the total population, are currently experiencing acute levels of hunger, a 3% increase from last year, according to the IPC. Malnutrition rates have also doubled in 2 years, from 7% to 14% of children under 5, with some areas recording even higher rates. WFP pointed out that armed violence, economic decline, persistent inflation, and poor agricultural output continue to drive Haiti's worsening crisis. The crisis in Haiti is acutely underfunded. WFP requires $139 million for the next 12 months to reach the country's most vulnerable families. And staying on Haiti, tomorrow you will hear from our guest, Roberto Benes, UNICEF's Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean. He will join the briefing from Haiti. A new report released today by the World Health Organization states that between the years 2018 and 2023, antibiotic resistance rose in over 40% of the pathogen antibiotic combinations monitored, with an average annual increase of 5 to 15%. The report warns that increasing resistance to essential antibiotics poses a growing threat to global health. WHO calls on countries to scale up coordinated interventions across all levels of healthcare and ensure that treatment guidelines and essential medicines lists align with local resistance patterns. And today is the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. In his message, the Secretary General says that as the climate crisis accelerates, disasters are multiplying and amplifying. The cost of the global economy is staggering, he added, yet funding to reduce repercussions remains dangerously low. He called on governments and donors to scale up investments in disaster risk reduction. That's it for me. If there's any questions? Yes, Gabriel.
Thank you, Farhan. Can you clarify, when you say 190,000 metric tons of aid have been cleared, there's a little confusion on if that has been cleared by Israel to enter into Gaza or not.
Yes, that's the point. We have the clearance necessary to bring all that aid into Gaza, and that has been agreed to with the Israeli authorities.
And that aid is currently in various locations outside of Gaza right now?
Yeah, those are the locations I mentioned.
Right.
Those include the West Bank, Israel, Egypt, also Cyprus, and Jordan, and we're trying to bring those in.
And when that aid gets to the border to cross into Gaza, since it's been cleared, does that mean that it goes right in, or is Israel still reserved the right to then re-clear it, if you will?
Well, as you know, over the past 2 years, we've had a problem in terms of having to deal with unloading and then reloading them onto different trucks. We're trying to expedite the process, but we're still working the necessary arrangements out with our Israeli counterparts in Kogat. But now that we have the clearance, we're trying to move as swiftly as possible to get it all in. Yes, Asim.
Hi, Farhan. Is the Secretary General aware about the situation between Pakistan and Afghanistan with fresh border clashes following the airstrike of Pakistan and Afghanistan? Has he been reached out to any of the parties, or does he have to say anything about this issue?
Well, we are monitoring the situation between Afghanistan and Pakistan with concern. We want to make sure that the two countries are able to work out their differences in a peaceful manner, and that further clashes are avoided. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you. There are talks about an international force in Gaza. Would the United Nations play any role in that force?
I believe those talks are in an early stage. We'll have to see how they develop. But as you know, if there is any need for approval for an international force, that request would need to go to the Security Council and to the members of the Council. Deshi?
Sorry, I was late, so hopefully you didn't really mention what I'm going to ask. Today we received the readout of the Secretary General's phone call with the Israeli President Herzog. Can you give us more details of those talks, like what they are going to implement after phase one? Have they mentioned about all those things?
One of the things that's happening in Sharm el-Sheikh is that countries will be discussing not just what happens in the current phase, but what the future phases hold. And as you know, I believe Stefan told you on Friday, the Secretary General met with the leaders of Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar in terms of talking about where we go from here.
Since he has already had a phone call with the Israeli president, is he still considered persona non grata in Israel?
That's a question to ask Israel, not me.
Okay, one last thing. By the way, U.S. President Trump will also be in Sharm el-Sheikh. Will Secretary General meet with him in person in there?
The Secretary General, as you know, is already in Sharm el-Sheikh, but at this stage, it's hard to get details about who exactly he's meeting with. The situation on the ground is very fluid.
Is he willing to meet with President Trump?
He's willing to meet with him as well as with any number of other leaders who are there. Yes. Lenka.
Thank you very much, Steph. Please, I wanted to ask, follow up on Deji. Has Trump answered to your congratulations regarding Gaza?
I'm not aware of that. Again, that's a question really for the U.S. side, but you're aware that we sent that.
Follow up, please. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna is leading a Congress delegation to meet with the Russian parliament, and she will be also meeting with the Russian representative here in Washington at the end of October. How do you appreciate such peaceful efforts or activities by both parties? Thank you.
Well, we appreciate all efforts at dialogue between the Russian Federation and the United States. Yes, please.
Thank you, Farhan. You may know that there is a global meeting on women kicked off in Beijing today, and to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Fourth World Conference on Women. And considering that there are still 600 million women and girls mired in poverty, conflict and war, and 10% of women and girls are trapped in poverty. Can you comment on the significance of this meeting to the global gender equality and women's development? Thank you.
Certainly, it's very important to have this meeting to follow up on the commitments made at Beijing and the follow-up to the Beijing Platform for Action. The Secretary General spoke very recently about Beijing Plus 30, and I'd refer you to what he said there.
And a follow-up, please. Chinese President Xi Jinping announced that China will, over the next 5 years, will donate another $10 million to UN Women. And he voiced China's support to the central role of the United Nations in advancing global gender equality. Can you comment on this?
Yes, we certainly appreciate the contribution from China and its support for the work, the important work done by UN Women. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Farhan. First, do you have any information or statement on the assassination of the journalist Saleh Al-Ja'farawi, who was killed yesterday?
We are aware of these latest reports. Obviously, this would need to be fully investigated. And again, we stand against the killing of journalists in Gaza and elsewhere.
Thank you. And my second question is that the Secretary General called the President of Israel to congratulate him for releasing the hostages. Did he make similar call to contact any Palestinian to congratulate them for releasing all those detainees, including children, women, UN staff, humanitarian workers, and medical staff as well?
Well, as I just mentioned to your colleagues, he is in Sharm el-Sheikh right now, and he will be meeting and talking with different leaders. I don't know at this stage whether he will meet with the Palestinian president, but I believe that President Abbas is also in Sharm el-Sheikh, so we'll have to see. Okay, Iftikhar?
Thank you, Farhan.
Okay.
My question has been asked, but is the Secretary General been in touch with the leaders of the two countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan?
I don't have anything to share on that right now. As you know, he's been traveling and meeting with people in Sharm el-Sheikh, but we'll see whether he is able to do that later in the week. Deshi?
Just a quick question. Is there any update on the investigation of the escalator?
When we have anything new to say beyond what we've already shared, we will let you know.
But
Yes,
could
Lanka.
you share, please, what is the holdup or where it stands actually? Why there is such a long time to actually find out?
I dispute that there was a long time. I believe that the day it happened, we provided a detailed explanation. If there's anything further that contradicts what we told you earlier, we will let you know. Otherwise, what we said on the day that it happened stands.
So to be exact, who is investigating the escalator thing now? OIOS, tech.
No, I
department?
think it's a technical issue, so it would be our people who are dealing with buildings and grounds. All right, have a good afternoon, everyone.